this take that I have found. It says, it's a long one, by the way, but it says, first, let me get this out of the way. I love lots of the post-Frieza content in Dragon Ball. The androids are great. I love Gohan beating Cell. I love Boo and Gohan in high school. And I'm a big fan of the Tournament of Power and Dragon Ball Super Broly. I appreciate all the Dragon Ball content we have and continue to get over the decades, but I enjoy it just as a casual popcorn show that I don't think too hard about. Okay. Dragon Ball was not always pure popcorn for me, though. I absolutely fell in love with the characters and was super invested around the tournament and Red Ribbon sagas. The story started not serious and fun, then had a perfect ramp up of drama and stakes from tournament to Red Ribbon, then to King Piccolo and Piccolo Jr. as the Earth threats. After we got the introduction to the Saiyans and incredible fights with Raditz, Nappa, and Vegeta, leading to the series turning spacebound in the best arc of the whole series, the Frieza Saga. I can't overstate how much I love the Frieza Saga, especially the beginning. The incredible tension of Krillin and Gohan sneaking through Frieza's forces, severely outmatched to keep the Dragon Balls out of Frieza's hands, was spectacular. Then Goku going Super Saiyan and finishing Frieza was such a cathartic moment, and I really felt like the series would have been perfectly wrapped there. Then we got to the Cell Saga, and Trunks comes in and effortlessly kills Frieza, the strongest thing in the universe, built up for over 100 chapters, and that was when I started to disconnect emotionally. Ever since that point, nothing felt special anymore. Any character going Super Saiyan, there's always a bigger bad guy than the last, that's 10 times as strong, even though Frieza can destroy planets. And we just keep retreading the same type of content over and over and over again. What's worse is once we hit the Buu Saga, almost every character has no development at all. Every single person from the Buu Saga to present day Broly movie is an exact snapshot of themselves at the start of Buu. I think the show should have wrapped up at the Cell Saga. What do you think about that? That's a long one. What do you think?
There's a point in there that I agree with. The very last point, just hard disagree. Like hard disagree, and we've discussed that. Like, I have to jump on that part straight away and just say Vegeta. Like Vegeta from the Buu Saga up until now becoming a family man is
completely different.
Yeah, it's a totally different character. Like his atonement, his going back to his Martian roots, his atonement, his becoming a family man, stopping training to wait for the birth of his child. I know there's a bit of contention about whether or not he's sticking with it, but his choice to step away at the end of the Tournament of Power and not follow into Goku's path. I know people are saying that that's not really going to happen and things, but still, the fact that he said it's going to happen, like all of that, the fact that, that's a prime example of one character who is outright changed. Like, so no, there's a hard disagree in that. I don't see how that makes any sense. And to just brush all of that aside doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
I will always agree with the whole there's always going to be a bigger bad. But what TV show that of any type that exists over a period of time that's any form of action in any way is not that?
Exactly. Like, we all know every show where there's fights and stuff, the main guy is going to overcome and be stronger. Just look at EastEnders, for example. Phil Mitchell is always going to take down whoever comes on Albert Square and tries to take over. It's always going to happen.
But it's like any anime that has any form of power or anything like that will be exactly the same as well. It's like, it's just the same. Like, you defeat a bad guy, you can't just bring in someone just as powerful because the protagonist will just be like, well, I've beaten someone like you before, so I'll just beat you again. They have to be stronger in some capacity, or they have to be smarter, or in some way they have to be better. And I wouldn't say that you could, like, I think Cell and Frieza are two very different enemies.
Mm.
Boo is very simple, I would say. Um, I'm not. I don't really care for Boo as a bad guy. I don't really care for him massively.
Mm.
But Cell, like Frieza, is just basically he's just Space Hitler. Basically, he's got a Napoleon complex, and so he just wants to take over everything. It's just what his character is.
Yeah.
Um, and he's and everybody knows that. But Cell, he wants to be the perfect being. I mean, his entire arc is him is you have the androids and you think, oh, okay, these are the bad guys, but it turns out they're not the bad guys.
No.
They're just the little, they're just the mini bad guys. There's actually the big thing that's going to prey on these and become. So you've got this whole build, like you never would have seen, like out of anywhere, like when Trunks appears and knocks out and takes out Frieza and says these androids are coming. There is no hint in any way, shape, or form that Cell's an issue.
Exactly.
Like that's never going to be an inclination that by the end of this, Gohan's going to be the big bat, going to be the savior, and like the true savior. I know we've seen that there's a bit of foreshadowing, but not to the level that we've seen, and that Cell's going to be a thing, and that entire story is very, very different than the Frieza story. But I see what they mean about there's always going to be a bigger bad, but that's always going to be the case. I think if you're okay with going to space and stuff like that, then I don't really see how you can have a massive issue. I think that's more of a personal taste issue than anything else.
Yeah, I agree with some of the points that this person said. Like, I do kind of miss the martial arts based style that Dragon Ball originally had, and even the start of Dragon Ball Z, where it was fully based on martial arts, no more ki blasts or anything, no big fights in space and all that stuff, but just hand to hand combat. And I do miss that to an extent, and how it was more lighthearted, a lot more jokes, which in Dragon Ball Z they kind of toned down on a lot. Like original Dragon Ball was very jokey, and it also had a lot of serious moments, and it meshed well together. Dragon Ball Z, they definitely toned down on the jokes and made it a bit more serious. And then in Dragon Ball Super, they did bring the jokes back, which is good. There is a lot of funny moments in Dragon Ball Super, especially with the newer characters, with Beerus and Whis, and their interactions with people as well. So that's good, and I like that. That's one of the things I like the most about Super, is the fact that there is these funny moments that haven't happened in a long time. Like, Dragon Ball has been a serious anime for quite a while with Dragon Ball Z, so I'm happy they brought that back. And I understand where he's coming from, because I think when any Dragon Ball fan talks about Dragon Ball and they're talking about their favorite sagas or favorite fights, no one goes straight to Super. And most people don't go to original Dragon Ball. They always say Dragon Ball Z, and their favorite fights usually are against Frieza or against Cell, because these are the two biggest moments in the entire show. And there's no hugely standout fight in Super where people can say, oh yes, I like this fight better than any other fight, apart from potentially the Broly fight. But that's a movie only fight right now. It's not even show canon right now, until they redo it in the show, if they do the anime again,
or at least address it.
Yeah, or at least address it. Yeah. So for now, obviously the movie fights are going to be better than the show fights, because they have to be. It's a movie. So yeah, I understand the downturn, and there is a lot of stuff about the Boo saga that a lot of people don't like, including myself. But saying that everyone's the same from the Boo saga to now, you mentioned Vegeta. I'm going to mention Gohan. Like, Gohan definitely has the biggest transformation. He becomes a dad. He stops fighting altogether after the Boo saga. He turns into a family man, and he's now like a skinny guy with a kid, looking after Videl and Pan. And it's just like, that's who he is, and he only fights when he's forced back into it to defend the world again, which is because of Goku again. Great dad. But yeah, like, Gohan, of course, had a massive change. He is definitely not the same as he was at the end of the Boo saga. Vegeta's not the same, like you mentioned. He becomes a bit more of a family man as well. And, you can argue that Krillin and Android 18, they're completely different. They're a family now, fully with a kid, and 18 doesn't get involved in as many fights until, again, she's needed for the Tournament of Power. Krillin's a policeman. Um, all this stuff. A lot of people do change, and
I
yeah.
mean, Videl, she gets introduced as a fighter
Hmm.
and goes from being a full-on fight. Like, she has an entire arc. Like,
Yeah.
I know she's not a main character, but she goes from being a full fighter. She gets a mini arc. She goes from being a fighter to being a mother. So you
Yeah.
get a new person coming in and changing in their entirety. And I know a lot of people don't like the fact she's a mother now and they miss the fight part of her, but it shows that there are people who have come in and changed. There aren't just cut out characters that have appeared and changed
Yeah.
and stayed the same, rather.
Maybe this is like a surprise thing that we're going to see in the movie because, of course, Pan is heavily focused in the trailers, as is Gohan. Where's Videl? Videl is the mother after all. Like, is she gonna have a part in the movie where she's fighting? Maybe Pan gets kidnapped or something, and she's
She
also
could be
fighting.
training Pan.
Yeah,
She could be the one to.
she could be the one training Pan, and that would
She
be
knows.
cool to see.
She knows how to handle Ki, doesn't she?
Yeah,
So she could. They could have been doing it together.
yeah.
You never know. Like, they could have been after Boo or something like that. Vidal could have been a bit worried,
Hmm.
or something, or you don't know. So yeah, it's potential.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
So
because Chi trained Goten, didn't she?
she did. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So it would make
So
sense for Videl to train Pan, especially since Gohan never wanted to be much of a fighter. It would make sense that Videl, the hothead, fiery one, who was originally introduced, is the one training a baby to fight. I guess it would make more sense than Gohan doing it, even though they really tamed Videl a lot in Super by turning her into a mom, and she's no longer this fiery hothead anymore. She is just, I don't want to say boring, but she is. She turned boring. And I really like Videl as well, but she did change and she doesn't do anything anymore. So yeah, it'll be good to see her kind of go back to her roots, become, a teacher at the
She was
pan.
actually, I'm not gonna lie, she was one of my considerations for the Deserve Better. I actually was looking up some clips and everything for her, but
Hmm.
I just didn't think she was enough of a main character, and I think um, there was much more involved characters. But
Yeah.
I did look into it just a little bit, and I looked into like her mini training montages and everything, and watched the clips of Gohan training her, and it was really like a really interesting episodes and
Hmm.
really interesting scenes, and like how she was truly intense and everything like that, and there were really good interactions. And then it's just kind of like they were flying during the Boo time. She found out it was him who was obviously defeated Cell, and then she was like, "I'm slowing you down. See ya." And then she's a wife. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, okay, right, fair enough.
Yeah.
That's the last of it.
Yeah,
So it was a bit of a shame. Yeah.
it is a shame, but I mean, this guy also said like he does enjoy a lot of the bits after the Cell Saga. Like he mentioned Gohan at school, which again I really like that as well. It showed a different side, an adult, well, like an older Gohan, and meeting Vidal and all that stuff with the Saiyaman and all that. But I can see his argument for ending at the Cell Saga. It would have been a natural ending to the show, I think, where they could have followed through with their original plans of making Gohan the new lead, and they could have easily started the next series, or you know, stop Dragon Ball Z there and make the next Dragon Ball something else after that, with Gohan being the new main character. They could have done that, and Z would have been a good ending with the Cell Saga. It would make sense because Goku's dead. Gohan just beat the main villain. It makes sense, but I can also see their points where it is a bit samey and it did get toned down a bit and isn't as good as it used to be. But overall, I'm gonna have to
I
disagree
think
with this take.
I think there is a nice little thing as well as going back to original Dragon Ball is like when Master Roshi was Jackie Chun and he got knocked out basically by Krillin and he saved himself using the Kamehameha, and how it blew everyone's mind that he
Mm.
managed to use this ability to save himself. How like how that's a thing
Yeah.
that he managed to do. It's like that's impressive. Whereas obviously that sort of thing is just impossible now in Dragon Ball. So it's
Mm.
like it's a scale difference. So yeah, I can see why the smaller, while it's on a smaller scale, it would be more impressive and how it's a lot easier to get invested.
Mm.
So yeah, I can see there are points that I would agree with, but I think it's very printed way too broad a brush for me to be able to agree with the point. Like way too
Yeah,
broad.
there's too much of Dragon Ball Super that I enjoy. All of the new characters, for the most part. I mean, there is a lot of bad characters as well, but most of the new characters that were introduced are good, like Beerus, Whis, Hit, Jiren to an extent, Toppo. All of them really good characters that I want to see more of. And yeah, they could have went in a different direction after Cell, but I'm kind of glad they didn't. You know, I like Gohan, and I like. I know this isn't a popular opinion at all, but I like what they've done with the Gohan character, turning him into a scholar who is a family man. You know, he turns into this wacky superhero for a while, and you know they do downplay him in a way, but I like that because that's who Gohan is. He was this goofy kid scholar who was forced to fight, and now that he's not forced to fight, he's kind of living out his childhood years as a teenager, being a bit more comical, acting out a bit because he doesn't have as much responsibility as he did have, where he had to save the world twice as a kid. So, yeah, I like what they did, and then they made him settle down, which good for him. I'm all for it.
Well, Trunks even addresses it when he comes in Super during the Black Arc. He comes to
Mm,
see him, and he's like, he gets to see him against the future Gohan, and
mm.
he's really happy for
Yeah,
him.
he's
He's like, it
overwhelmed.
blows his mind,
Yeah,
but it's like, yeah, it totally blows his mind. But you find out he has a family and everything. It's a nice little. It's only a very short part of an episode, but it's very nice.
yeah, I really like that.
And I think, yeah, yeah, I think it's nice to see that the super powerful character isn't constantly forced into being the the savior. It's
Yeah,
like sometimes like
that's
just
Goku.
they're allowed to be themselves. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Goku's
It'll
the one
always be
that's
Goku.
forced down
It'll
your
never
throat.
not be Goku.
Exactly.
It'll always be Goku.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean, I'm fine with that. You know what you're getting into with Dragon Ball. You know Goku's going to be the main character, and all of the side characters do get their little moments here and there. Especially Vegeta, I guess, and not so much the others. But you know, Goku for the most part, he is the main character, and it's the same with literally any anime ever. The main character does most of the work, and that's just what happens. So,
yeah,
what do you expect? What
true.
do you expect? But yeah, as far as this take goes, I don't think it's a horrible take, but I will disagree with it overall.
Same. I think it's way too vague,
Yeah,
despite how long it is.
yeah. Despite how long it is, yeah, it was a mouthful.